Okay, this is our third mini lecture on the French Revolution, and this is the moderates part 2. So, they had promised that they would deliver a constitution for France, which means, the end of an absolute monarchy, and a document that would protect the rights of humans and, limit the power of government. So, this is the third thing that they accomplish, and here are some of the major features of the Constitution of the moderate phase of the Revolution. First of all, they have to deal with monarchy, and what they decide is to set up a limited monarchy. They're not going to take the king and queen out and chop their heads off yet. They're going to give them a chance to cooperate with the revolution, but they won't have absolute power. They're going to have to accept limitations on their power. Now, here's another issue they faced. What about slavery? So, Crane Brinton, who has written a great book on the anatomy of revolution, says that the moderates may shout the revolutionary slogans, but they're willing to compromise on every single issue. So let's take slavery. If this is really a revolution about liberty, equality, and fraternity, obviously they should get rid of slavery. However, slavery is very important to the economy. So just like in our system, in our constitutional system in the United States, slavery remains. Because it's important to the economy, we did the same thing in the United States. Now, what about voters? Votes to men who own land. So, they've never really had a system of voting in France, so their first time is going to be an experiment. Who gets the right to vote? Votes will go to men who own land. This is the same thing that happened in the American situation. Our Constitution set up voting rights for white males who own property. And it would take a long time for the right to vote to be extended to all men and then ultimately to women. So that's number 3. That's the Constitution. They did deliver. It obviously has limitations, and it is a bundle of compromises, not unlike the U.S. Constitution. Now, here's a fourth thing that they do. And again, this is discussed in chapter 22, questions 10 and 11. They're going to pass a bill, Civil Constitution of the Clergy. Here's what it does. It grants religious toleration. To Jews, as it says in the study guide for the chapter, and Protestants. Because after all, remember in the Declaration of the Rights of Man, they did announce that they would introduce religious liberty into this society. Here's the way they did it. Religious toleration to Jews and Protestants. Now, this becomes very controversial. Catholic Church property is now French property. So over the span of hundreds of years, Monasteries throughout France had gained ownership of land and had a lot of property and possessions. That land, that church property, is now French property. So what they're trying to do here with this civil constitution of the clergy is set up a French Catholic Church rather than a Roman Catholic Church. So here's another feature. Priests will be elected by each parish. So to this day, in the Roman Catholic Church, the hierarchy of the church assigns priests to a particular parish. And in a sense, what they're trying to do here is democratize the Roman Catholic Church. They're going to say that a parish should be able to elect the priests that they will have to serve them in their parish. So this is a very difficult thing that they had to do. How do you go from a society where one church, one version of Christianity has had all the power, to a society that has religious toleration? This is how they tried to do it, and it alienated people on either side. So if you think of the moderates as being in the middle, now I'll turn this way so we can use these directions. If the moderates are in the middle, over here on the left are the radicals who don't think that this has gone far enough. If they get power, and they eventually are going to, they're going to try to get rid of organized religion altogether. So they don't like this because it's too moderate. Over here on the right, you're going to have more conservative Catholics who think this has gone too far, that they don't want to see this much change. They don't want to see a break with the Roman part of the Roman Catholic Church. So what the moderates discovered here is what it's like to be in the middle and to exercise political power. And when you do, you'll have those who oppose you on either side of the political spectrum. Now, the moderates were unable to control the French Revolution. So there's a question, I think it's number 8 on your study guide, which talks about how the French Revolution is different from the American Revolution. It's more complex, it's more radical. And what happens here is, unlike the American Revolution, where the moderates who waged the revolution, like Jefferson, Washington, and those people, unlike those people who maintained control of the revolution and later became the leaders of the country in terms of being presidents, the moderates in the French Revolution are going to lose control, and we're going to head into a radical phase, which will be the subject of our next mini lecture.